by the way. In doing so, we look in particularly to what is commonly known as the fundamentals, the reform program this country is going through to prepare for EU membership, in particular in the broad area of the rule of law. I believe this agenda is of utmost importance for the business community as well. Promotion of the transparency in business climate, fight against corruption will help, and other conditions will help Serbia to attract investment and hence create jobs, and motivate talented and skilled people to stay here and work for a better future. This will inevitably lead to a win-win situation for the private economic operators here in this room, as well as for the country and society at large, and the well-being of this society, which is a future member, this country, a future member.
My name is Director of Ambassador and Your Excellencies, and with the huge support of the trading mission from the Belgian embassies as well, I want to thank you all for coming into this beautiful facility, which is quite unique. So, in front of Development Agency of Serbia, also I wish welcoming to all colleagues from the companies who will attend this seminar, as well as I want to congratulate to our colleagues who've been really active into operating and to creating this event really successful. So first of all, I wish you a pleasant stay in this beautiful, as I can say, object, and in the further details, after our welcoming speech, we will have a presentation about the possibilities for investing here in Serbia and opportunities what can government and local self-government can offer, but also what is really important that we have a company such as Metek who can present their exercise, how they've done business here in Serbia and what obstacles they have during this process. But anyhow, what is really good to hear how the local self-government is doing business with investors. And here with us is colleague Milan from the municipality or city of the Republic of Serbia. We have really a little bit of difference regarding our statistics in trading, but it is really close nowadays. But what is important that we have increased each and every year by 10%. So this is really a really good trend. And among countries, which is roughly around 100 countries who invested in the Republic of Serbia, Belgium is always between 20 and 25 countries. So that is really a huge result. So again, I wish you a pleasant stay here. My colleagues will be at your disposal after the presentation and everything, but anyhow, this is just the first step in the cooperation. You have our contacts, so we are really at your disposal for any kind of questions and all assistance that is needed in the future days. Again, welcome. Thank you.
And now Mr. Vulic will present will do his presentation about why you should invest in Serbia and what are the business opportunities.
Hello everyone. I'm very glad to be here. If I remember correctly, the last time we organized something like this was actually 6 years ago in Smederevo, and it was in Metek. The last time we did this, there were fewer companies, but it was very active, and I remember that time there was quite an interest from Belgian companies into Serbia, and I'm glad to see that this kind of engagement continues over the years. I'm not going to bore you today with details and statistics so much as to explain to you how business is done in Serbia, how we assist foreign companies, in this case Belgian companies, what is the current situation on the labor market, how we compete with our competition today, and to bring you closer to the business environment in general in Serbia. So, for those who came today on this conference from Belgium, you've seen that we're not far. You sit on a plane 2 hours here in Belgrade, roughly. If you do business in Serbia, you can pretty much export to most of your customers in Western Europe in about 24 hours per truck. So we've always been, for those who remember a little bit of our history, we've always been a very industrialized country. Even in Yugoslavia at times, Serbia was the cornerstone of the industry, of the entire industry. And as such, we are not unfamiliar with industry in general. We just had some time off during the 90s. So some general information. I will talk a little bit more afterwards to say a little bit where we are when it comes to our accession to the European Union, generally about the economic and political stability. But these are just some figures to show you that we've done quite a lot of things in the past 5 to 10 years that has changed completely the economic image of our country, which was not always the best in the past, and the changes of the industry. I mentioned the automotive industry. Automotive industry has been one of the motors of our development, industrial development in the last couple of years, with the arrival of some big players, and now Serbia actually has become one of the main hubs in Europe and one of the main first choices when a company is doing due diligence where to build a new factory. So this has given results so far. However, we have to think about the future. We know that technology is changing and there will be some disruptions in industry in general, not just the automotive industry, but also in other industries as well. So we have to prepare ourselves to be in a position that we're going to fight more and more with highly, let's say, more technologically developed projects, and soon in the future we'll be competing with highly developed countries for some projects. This is to give you the idea of who are the biggest investors in Serbia in terms of value and which sectors are the most dominant when it comes to foreign direct investments. So you have here, as I said, you have the automotive industry being the active one, but just following this behind it is the agriculture, food and beverage, textile and clothing. So if you take those three sectors involved, you see how much they're participating in our FDI stock. Also you see the country here. For example, give you an example. US has been steadily climbing over the years, not so much present before 2010, and then after 2010 you'll see a steady climb of US investments. Also German ones, French ones have been also on some steady level. However, the biggest presence, of course, is you'll see that investments are mostly coming from the European Union. Of course, you follow what's happening in Europe in general. We have more and more investments coming from Asia. Serbia is not exempt from that. So we are also now under heavy interest of companies from Asia, whether it is China, Korea, or Japan. It has no difference. The interest is now related to Europe. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this. This is why we have divided Serbia into 5 regions for development, which means that the support of the government when it comes to incentives and generally into supporting companies when they're investing in Serbia, we always pay attention that we first try to see how we can develop the least developed areas and bring companies over there. Not because we think this is just a good political thing to do, but because these regions used to have strong industries, but during the 90s they lost a lot of this industry that we mentioned, agribusiness, textile, metalworking. In this area we have very high unemployment rate, and this is why as a government we are ready to provide substantially higher support for companies who decide to go in less developed areas in Serbia. Operating costs. What you see here is the average, the labor cost in Serbia. This number here represents the total cost of an operator in Serbia in general. How much it costs to employ a worker in Serbia. It can be less than this, it can be higher than this. This is why I say this is the average. When you compare it to other countries, you will see that we are quite competitive. What has been changing in Serbia over the years? We have had a steady growth of salaries, which unfortunately did follow the currency exchange rate between the Serbian and the dinar. And if you take a look, I don't have it here, but I can tell you that if you put all those figures 10 years back and you look at the salaries and the growth of the salaries in Serbian industry in general, and especially because of the crisis that hit us between 2008 and 2013, you practically didn't have a growth of salaries at all. we see a significant interest of companies to now develop more operations in the south of Serbia because of some slightly lower costs than, for example, central or northern Serbia. However, this figure here gives you a rough idea of the total costs one operator would cost a company. On the electricity cost, when it comes, if you're a large user of electricity, Serbia is definitely a country for you. I'm not talking about only in European Union, I'm talking in Europe in general. We have extremely competitive electricity costs, especially which is important for large consumers.